All right. First production walkthrough. I have no idea how this is going to go, but I figured why not give it a first shot on one of my favorite songs to produce, which was my new single, Beverly. And this is a song that I started and kind of built the foundation out by myself. And then I brought it into my buddy Jesse Mason, who helped me add a bunch of really cool guitar and bass and synth atmospheric parts to this one. So we're going to go through everything chronologically. I'm going to show you sort of what my thought process was building out some of the different sections on the track, and maybe show you some tips and tricks that I like to use across my productions that I used in this one right here. But yeah, this one, I guess to give a little bit of context behind the song, it started with just a melody idea that popped into my head in the shower, and I got I thought it was pretty catchy, so I got out of the shower as quickly as possible, got to my phone, recorded it on a voice memo, because if you're a songwriter, you know how easy it is to forget a good melody in your head. Even the best ones escape us, and it is the most frustrating thing to know that you had something good and to have completely forgotten it either a few hours later or the next day. So really, really important for me to get something down right when it hits my head. And that's the luxury we have these days of phones and voice memos and whatnot. So just to give you a little idea of what that sounded like. All I need, all I need is your love. All I need, all I need is your love. So yeah, obviously not the same as what you hear in the final product, but the start of the idea, right? Just gibberish in the lyrics. And then that turned into this, which was probably a few hours later as I was getting really inspired and building out the track. All I need is your love tonight. Won't you give me a place to turn it around? All I need is... So again, obviously not any of the lyrics that I ended up using, but that really conveys the core of the track, right? I laid down those strings, which just kind of grab you immediately, and fleshed out that melody, which is sort of the genesis of what ends up showing up in the song in the final product. So clearly I didn't use the lyric "all I need." I figured there was a little vanilla. I could find something a little more interesting. So I went through about 10 to 15 different iterations of that same rhyme, because I thought those vowels over that melody, that sort of sound, was right. So I looked for different phrases or words that rhymed with that "all I need," and I came up with Beverly, which I thought was a really interesting title, just having a name as a title, and it gave me sort of that classic feel that I was going for or aiming for with my project and the music itself. So I feel like it really fit into the creative vision for the song. So this one is Beverly. We'll dive into, I guess, the intro right away. One kind of stemming off of that classic feel, kind of wanting to pay homage to the 60s and the 70s, a lot of that Laurel Canyon singer-songwriter type of music of the time. I really like to highlight harmonies in my music, that sort of Crosby, Stills, Nash feel of like a trio or a group of harmonies behind that lead vocal. So right off the bat in this one, in the intro, you get everything. The lead with all the harmonies, and we'll scroll down here to where I have the vocals. This is our lead. Beverly, Beverly, I wanna make you mine. Obviously, it would just be a little weird if the song started off with just that, though. So here's all those. Beverly, Beverly, I wanna make you mine. I could use a little love tonight. And then my favorite part of the song, which is the strings. This is really what got me most inspired to finish this one and really see it out, was when I came up with this little string pattern. And this is what that sounds like solo. So for this one, I used the Abbey Road, little siren there. I used the Abbey Road 2 string library from Spitfire, which is, in my opinion, the GOAT of not just string libraries, but likely all software instruments. I just love pretty much everything they make, but specifically this one is just, to me, an incredible balance of like a modern pop sound with that classic Beatlesy Eleanor Rigby type of string quartet sound. So they have a bunch of options here to choose from of articulations. And for the short strings, they have a regular staccato, a spiccato, and then a spiccatissimo, which is even shorter. So I went with the spiccato, which just kind of falls right in the middle in terms of not having too much of a tail, but not being too extreme of a staccato sound. So here's what that would sound like if it were just staccato. Which sounds great, but it's just a little too much tail for me, so a little tighter there. And then if we go to this one, I use this one all the time in other productions, but isolated here in this song was just a little bit too tight. But as you can hear, really percussive and just such a great sound. This was so well recorded, this library. And then of course I had to do the trill, or the tremolo into the staccato strings, which sounds like this. Just an awesome library. So that together. And I use that tremolo across the track just for emphasis at different points. And you'll notice that it's pretty much just the same string pattern throughout the whole song that provides that core, save for just different chords and different sections. So yeah, that one was just really fun to play and really fun to build out when you have a sound out of the box that's just that strong. And really, I mean, I can take off these effects. These really aren't doing a whole lot. It really does sound good out of the box. All I'm doing is just adding a little bit of saturation to give it a little more of a modern sound, and then taking out some of that low end. So those are the strings, and that's pretty much the whole first verse, just strings and vocal.
7 days since she rolled in. Sadie said that she's the talk of town. The boys are buying what she's smoking. 2 Camel lights for Cadillac nights.
And yeah, you'll notice to fill some of that space in the verse, Jesse added these really cool, kind of bubbly, filtered delays on the vocals. So those sound like this. Very, very subtle and simple, but adds a ton in my opinion. And then the vocal itself, I'm doing some delay throws, I believe. Let's take a look. Yeah, so is this one at the end?
Cadillac nights.
So yeah, Echo Boy just has so many classic analog-y sounding delays, and I really like this one in particular, the DM2, for delay throws. But yeah, my vocal chain throughout is, it's obviously not visible here because I've done all my vocals in a separate session and then brought them in. But it's pretty much the same chain that I use on the majority of my productions, which you can actually check out in some of the output tutorials that I did a little while back that are up on their YouTube page. I go through my whole vocal chain, my compression, my spatial effects, all that good stuff. But I'll get into this part of it a little bit later with my vocal bus. But yeah, for now, let's move on to the pre-chorus. And for the first pre-chorus, the main objective was really just opening up the track a little bit, but not giving away too much. So I did that primarily through just atmospheric effects and things that are sort of pushed more towards the background instead of being more front and center, because I wanted that chorus to really hit hard and more in your face when it arrived. So if we just solo, actually, let's just play.
Cadillac nights, strawberry wine, credit card, dozen roses. I'm on the front line. Shoot for the sky. If I tried, would you notice? Oh, tell me I'm out of my mind.
Yeah, so again, pretty simple. There's not a whole lot going on yet because we're just introducing the melodies. We got a story that we're trying to convey. So we don't want too much in the production, or at least I didn't want too much in the production that was going to take away from that, right? You want to pull in the audience and make sure they know what's going on with the story. So if we just solo what's going on behind, most of what's going on behind that, we have these synths, which I had a lot of fun with. So yeah, all very textural, right? It's all just providing that atmosphere behind the lead vocal without much rhythm going on. Obviously, there's that pulsating thing, which are a couple of these omnisphere, just arpeggiated or sequences. But other than that, this was a fun little one. Let's take a listen. So we take off these effects. You can see I heavily filtered it and then just added some reverb. But this is what it sounds like without those effects. But that's actually pitched up 15 semitones. So original sample sounded like this. Probably couldn't tell that was a saxophone to begin with. So that was pretty fun to turn into a completely different sound. Yeah, just a cool, airy, bubbly synth. That's something I really like doing, is just taking splice samples or random samples from packs that have a really good melodic bass, but maybe don't have exactly the sound that I'm trying to achieve, and just playing around with the effects on it. Let's see what else we have. Nice descending Juno-y sound. That was, let's see. Yeah, a little Analog Lab. This is something I do a lot, just different swells and sort of cinematic pulses and things coming in and out, just to make it feel like it's really breathing and it's not just a loop. This just adds a lot of texture. Analog strings. Oh, so cool. What a great library. Use the output stuff all the time for that kind of stuff. And then we have maybe my favorite part of this pre, which I would love to take credit for, but that is actually just a splice sample. That is not even my own ad-lib. So if you take off these effects, yeah, just faded that and gave it a nice reverb throw. And then what else? Do we have any guitars in here? Oh yeah, one lone little guy. Cool. Yeah, just for added atmosphere. That was a guitar rig preset there. But yeah, that's pretty much the first pre-chorus. And then we get this fun little guy.
Beverly.
So that's a reverse guitar of essentially this whole stack. I can't remember if it was just this bus or the entire acoustic bus, but also something I do a lot as a transition is just resample whatever's coming in the next section and reverse it into that section. Tried and true, works all the time. So yeah, that was something I've really focused on with this production, because there are a lot of like stops and spaces in the way that I arranged the melody and the vocal. So I just wanted to make sure that we weren't dipping the energy too much in those spots, and we had some sort of fun little like effects and textures and things coming in and out there. So that's why you have those tremolo strings and that lead in here, and you'll see later there's some drum fills I added into to fill those spaces. But yeah, let's take a look first. Well, let's listen through the chorus.
Beverly, Beverly, I wanna make you mine. I could use a little love tonight. Beverly, Beverly, don't let me say goodbye. Just give me a little more time. Beverly, Beverly, I wanna make you mine. I could use a little love tonight. Beverly, Beverly, don't let me say goodbye. Just give me a little more time.
Dope. So the meat of the chorus is obviously the vocals and all the harmony stacks, but these acoustic guitars. You'll notice there are two different stacks, ones that Jesse played and ones that I played. I'll solo the ones that I played first. And then these are Jesse's. This is how they sound together. And then Jesse added some of these strum guitars as well, just to, because when the second half kicks in with all the harmonies, we really want the energy to pick up. Kicks in with the harmonies and the drums, so we kind of want to match that energy in the guitars. So Jesse added in these strums as well. And those together with the stabs and the ones that I threw in. So yeah, with that, you're still getting the emphasis on those beats that we want to emphasize, but we're getting the momentum too from the constant strumming of the acoustic. So with these, the main objective was to get just as full a sound as we possibly could. So that's why you'll notice I played lower on the fretboard, lower inversions, and Jesse played higher up the fretboard. And you'll notice there's this really cool choppiness with his, and I thought it was really just a really cool effect that he did while he was editing these, because I think if you solo them, sure, they sound a little bit disjointed. Not like the cleanest you would think, but it's when it's combined with these, I don't know, it just provides that much more emphasis and punchiness to a section where we need as much of that as possible. So yeah, I just thought that really filled out what we were trying to achieve. And obviously between the higher and the lower guitars, we're filling the whole frequency spectrum. So that, in addition to me playing a different guitar than what he was playing, just gives us a full sort of spectrum of textures and frequencies. And then moving on to the electrics in this spot, let's listen to those. Not much going on early. Let's see. Whoop, that's not the bus here. There's some little plucks. Another one of those little transitions. So was really just going for the very classic kind of chorusy, reverby electric guitar sound. And you'll notice that with some compatibility issues, bet- since I started this session on my old computer, these plugins will not show up if I unfreeze them. So I unfortunately cannot go in and show you the presets I use, but it was some sort of clean sound through the archetype Corey Wong for this first guitar. Actually, let's listen. And then actually we can take a look at the Echo Boy. Digital churn, another guitar preset. And then that was just going through, probably taking out some of the low end muddiness with multiband. And then what Jesse did for a lot of these guitars was run them through a more slightly distorted amp emulation that he has, that he uses a lot. And I kind of just took all those stems he sent me and mixed them in, however loud I was feeling them. So you'll notice this is noticeably more distorted. But those two together just gives it a little more kick, right? So those were fun to mix in, and then we have another one. Just the kind of like a high lead solo line going over the same progression that's playing here to open it up. Again, this second half of the chorus, we're trying to open things up with the harmonies, adding the drums. We'll get to the bass in a minute. The rest of these are just kind of muted plucks. Let's go through these. Super simple. What do we got here too? So just another kind of like lower little lead solo line that turns into a pluck. These were things I was just kind of experimenting with, playing around with. I had this on loop and was just going through, playing different things on my guitar, seeing what was working, what was not. I mean, you'll see I've cut some stuff out. So yeah, it's just really about throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. And then we have some kind of muted chords here, I believe. Jesse threw these in. Just again, adding body. The plucks. And then this is a really cool one that Jesse threw in. A very chorusy, analog-y, delayed guitar in here. So yeah, all of those together with the acoustics on that second half sound like this. And then the only other parts in this chorus are just some synths, a little added body with this pad. This was fun too, getting in the studio with Jesse, because he has a big synth stack of different synthesizers that he has really dialed in and kind of very plug and play, ready to go. So we, again, just had this chorus on loop, and we're playing through different things on different synths, seeing what sounded good, and ultimately arrived on a few different parts. One of them is just following the string part, essentially. Just providing a little bit of different harmonics in the chords there, but obviously very warm, Juno-y pad sound. And then just cool little sprinkles, flares. Kind of a very tape machine quality to this pad. So yeah, that's just kind of providing some of the retro-y E feel to the body of the chorus. So, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, those. Oh, this I cannot forget. My favorite part of the chorus. Love a good little trill. That's just going through some thermal. Distortion, cut a bunch of the low end out, threw on some reverb, a little parallel compression. Yeah, that's what's going on there. And this was just a keyscape patch that already had some echo on it built in. So here's what that sounds like. So since we already had a ton of low end body to the chorus, didn't need any of that in this sound. Wanted more high end, wanted this to kind of stick out of the mix. So threw some distortion and took out a lot of the low end there. So fun to play around with keyboards every now and then. And then the only other thing to take a look at in the chorus is the bass here, which Jesse pretty much did all of. He combined some Juno bass, just pulsating, with real bass, which again, regretfully cannot show you what I did here. Just going through some effects to take out some of the muddiness, and then through a bass emulation on Archetype. And then a sub, if you can even hear that. And then as far as the vocals are concerned, we'll take a look at the background.
Beverly, Beverly, I wanna make you mine.
So I think I did, I want to say at least 4 stacks on this. Probably panned 2550 on one side, 2550 on the other side. And I wanted these to be a little more hushed or breathier than the lead, because I didn't want to give away too much at the top of the chorus. I really wanted this to be our main climax here in the middle.
Beverly, Beverly.
So all those harmonies come in at once and it really hits hard. So to make that hit harder, I decided to
Beverly, don't let me say goodbye.
do these just a little bit more subdued and not have any of those harmonies come in on the first half. But yeah, these harmonies soloed sound like this.
Beverly, Beverly, I wanna make you mine. I could use a little love tonight. Beverly, Beverly, don't let me say goodbye. Just give me a little more time.
And let's actually solo all of the instrumental. Now that we've gone through the vocals, let's solo the instrumental. So yeah, just wanted to kind of show that effect that I was going for, where everything really just hits hard in that right at the beginning of that second half of the chorus, because that is where our drums really are introduced into the track. So obviously we have these hats going for the first half of the chorus, just to kind of start setting some rhythm and some pace. And then the kicks come in. Some toms. And then in the middle here is really where we go full steam ahead on the drums. So yeah, you kind of get the idea there with the pattern. I won't go too deep into all the different drum stems. There's just a few interesting things to pick out here. We got a live hat that we played in Jesse's studio, so that soloed sounds like this. Definitely always try to record a live hat when you have the option. Then this one's a little looser. Again, because we're opening everything up on the second half. So everything's going to be slightly more open. We have these crashes coming in, big snares. One of which is that sort of snares providing more body. And then this one's a little bit more hollow and has a bit more of a boxy sound. And you'll even see that I've kind of played around with the pitch on some of these, right? So we get different hits since we're not using a live snare, trying to emulate that as a live feel to it as much as you can, kind of hitting the snare harder or softer in different parts. And then what else is interesting here in the drums? That cadence, here, we'll play it again. You'll notice it kind of comes up on the offbeat on the second snare. And I could have gone with, I was debating whether to go with this or more of just a backbeat, boom, boom, cap, boom, 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 cap. And I just felt like this was more interesting. It pulled you in a little bit more. Again, just felt a little more classic than, we do go to it in the second verse. But for the chorus, just wanted to do something a little more interesting and kind of have these crashes coming in on offbeats and really make it feel like we're pushing things forward as opposed to just falling back into this groove and it being super chill. Again, really wanted as much impact as I could achieve on the second half of that chorus. So yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that I might have glossed over. Oh yeah, I'll just show you the processing I had on these guitars that I played. Usually pretty simple for me with acoustics. It's really about getting a good recording and playing it into the production, playing it as close as possible as what you're envisioning, if that makes any sense. As opposed to trying to fix everything with transient shapers and effects and reverbs and EQs. So obviously you got to do some heavy lifting with EQs, taking out a lot of the resonances of the guitar itself. And then this room obviously isn't the greatest in terms of soundproofing and, just being really dead room to record in. So had to play around with a few frequencies there, just pull those down and then take out some of the low end. And then I'm running through this Fairchild, which I pretty much run all my acoustic guitars through. It's just a really smooth, not too harsh compressor. And it brings a lot of life to those guitars. So let's just listen to just the EQ. Solo those. Yeah, just breathe some life into it. And then I'm just using this rhythm guitar clarity preset within the guitar section on FabFilter MB. But yeah, really most of it was me just strumming really hard and getting as percussive a sound as possible as I could out of the guitar going into the signal chain. So yeah, let's take a look at going into the second verse.
The liquor store is a hideout. Owner offers her a crown on the house. And there's a line around the corner just to see her, just to meet her.
So yeah, you'll notice not a whole lot going on in the second verse. I really liked having the juxtaposition of the big chorus and then bringing things back down without losing too much energy. So we have a few driving elements, which are those plucks that I believe those are Jesse's. And I just put those through this drive chorus on thermal. I use thermal on so much of my productions. It's such a great creative tool in terms of sometimes it can get a little too distorted. I mean, that's kind of what it's for. It is a distortion plugin, but it's just so useful in terms of getting interesting textures and sounds and kind of turning something into completely different soundscape. So I use it a lot. And, as opposed to like this preset, for example, it's subtle, but it's not just a regular old chorus, right? It's got some sort of drive to it. It's got these LFOs that are working and making it sound more human and dynamic by changing some of these effects over time. So thermal really gives it to you on a silver platter sometimes, but I'm using that just with this around the head panning preset, stock Ableton. Then we got a nice little guitar in here. It's purely more atmospheric. This shows up same exact part, just through different processing. Little less filtered, but way more reverb, just way pushed to the back. So we're getting some support, but again, nothing that's too front and center, so that we feel like we're bringing the attention right back to right in front of the vocal, and everything's feeling a lot more dry. And part of that is achieved through totally switching out that snare in the drums. So we'll solo the drums. So yeah, you'll notice that we don't have this big reverby snare anymore. I've cut off pretty much most of the tail of that and taken out this other more reverby snare that I played before. And we have this really tight snare doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So that's pretty much the whole second verse. Is just kind of keeping the momentum and bringing the energy back down for a bit of a release. Strings are still going as they are in the first verse. One of the main differences is, other than the drums, is just the bass now. Which Jesse totally rocked. And a few different harmonies. Let's hear these. Fun stuff. So now moving into the pre, same sort of objective, still wanted it to be atmospheric, open things up a little more. But I didn't want it to be a total just copy paste of a lot of these effects that I have going here. So I brought in some new atmospheric elements, some new elements to provide body that are different from the first pre, but still sort of achieve the same perspective and aren't so new and sticking out in the mix so much that they're taking attention away from the vocal. So let's take a listen to those. Or let's actually just take a listen to everything in the second pre.
Strawberry wine, credit card, dozen roses. I'm on the front line. I shoot for the sky. If I tried, would you notice? Oh, tell me I'm out of my mind.
All right, so let's just solo that synth bus. So my favorite part of this pre is, I wish I could tell you which arcade pack this came from. I've obviously committed this. It's some sort of like Sitari ARP situation. Yeah, again, I don't know whether I affected it in arcade or if it kind of just came like this out of the box. All I've done is just taken out a lot of the low end and put some phasing on it. But this is what that sounds like. So yeah, it's just such a cool droney, again, like almost like otherworldly type of sound. And it to me adds so much to this section without feeling like it's like totally out of left field. So yeah, I was very happy to find whatever pack preset that was in Arcade. Arcade just has so much really solid sounding out of the box fun stuff to take and resample. That's really mainly how I use Arcade, is taking something, a loop, a pad, a drone like that, committing it like I've done here, and just resampling it. So this even could be committed from another round of putting processing on it. I might have put it through like an arpeggiator in Ableton and then committed it again. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back to one of my early session files for this song and see what I did. But that's really the majority of how I use Arcade. It's just taking those little bits and resampling them, using them as transitions and whatnot. It's just such a great tool for that. But obviously you can use it to start a song, to use it as the main loop behind a song. It really is like an all-encompassing tool. You could produce an entire song in Arcade. So that's a tool that I use all the time. Moving on to how I was mentioning, providing a little more body in this section than the first pre, because now we've had the chorus with the drums and the bass, and we have the bass going through the second verse with some lighter drums, but we still have those elements providing a lot more body than they were in the first verse and in the first pre. So we don't want to totally drop out all the low end, kind of the weight and the beef that we already have, like we were in the first verse and the first pre, right? Those were more airy, didn't have a lot of low end yet, were a lot more light. So if we go back to kind of what we had in the first pre, then we're going to lose a lot of that energy that we've built up. So we achieved that by adding, just a few more elements sort of in that low mid range to keep the momentum up, but again, not take away too much from what we've already established the kind of the vibe of the pre to be. So these are some keys that I added. And again, I wanted to infuse as much classic sound as I could into this song, so I just went with the classic Rhodes, which again gives it that sort of 60s, 70s retro-y feel to it. And then another Arcade patch. Another really cool line is this raw takes. Very tape machiney sound, or sorry, more of a cassette type of sound. Just a pad going there, and then the same sequence and atmosphere. And not a whole lot else going on top of that. We got these plucks. Again, just little things that we're adding in these different sections to provide a little bit of novelty, but not overcomplicate and take the focus away from the vocals. So we're doing that with the guitars, we're doing that with the synths, even added this kind of interesting textural thing with the drums, a little percussion loop that I filtered out most of, but I just thought this sounded really, really cool. And yeah, I just had to pitch that to sort of match the key of our song. So if we solo the drums, let me compare that with the verse. Right, so no atmospheric elements in the verse, very dry, very broken down. And yeah, then we're just opening it up again, right? We're bringing it down in the second verse, and then we're doing another gradual build into the second chorus. It's all, I'm very much about like ebb and flow throughout the production and what I do. And I want to make sure that we're never losing people's attention, right? We're always we're juxtaposing different sections. We're building up tension, and then we're bringing it back down, and we're releasing, building up tension, releasing, building tension, releasing. So in that way, I think a lot of my production is more built in more of a cinematic way. But that's just really how I like to approach it, because it makes it fun, trying to figure out how to differentiate all these different sections while also keeping the audience interested throughout. So hopefully I've achieved that in this song, but just wanted to show another fun little part just to build us into the chorus a little more. That little Beverly snare roll. And then I'll show the backgrounds in the, oh yeah, the bass is pretty much doing the same thing as it is in the verse. Let's see what I even ran through that. This was some preset in Neutron. I couldn't tell you which one. Probably I use this one a lot. I think it was that one, but they tend to disappear after you use them. So we'll move on.
Strawberry credit card. Shoot for the, if I tried, would you notice?
So yeah, with these, I just wanted to add little stabs to emphasize sort of the parts that I felt were being emphasized in the vocal based off of how it was fitting into the pocket of the drums. So I usually do this when I don't want it to sound like too show choir-y and there's just harmonies on everything and it feels like it's all just one big group singing the whole section. I'll usually only do that like on the verse with Oz, so that it almost sounds like another instrument. But when I'm following the lyrics, you know, apart from obviously I've done in the chorus, I've have harmonies on all of the lyrics, but especially in the verses and the pre's where you're going to hear those harmonies a lot more present. I find it more fun to just do little stabs and emphases, again, to have that little push and pull, right? You know, building it up with the harmony and taking it out, building it up, taking it out, so that it kind of keeps you more on the edge of your seat. So that's
strawberry wine, credit card, dozen roses. I'm on the front line. I shoot for the sky. If I tried, would you notice? Oh, tell me I'm out of my mind.
So that's what those sound like. And then the second chorus really isn't too different from that second half of the first chorus. So that's what
Beverly, Beverly, I wanna make you mine. I could use a little love tonight. Beverly, Beverly, don't let me say goodbye. Just give me a little more time.
So yeah, pretty much the same thing. I don't really think there's that many new elements in here. Let's just take a look and make sure. Yeah, so those same acoustics, electrics, same drum groove. We're just going to have this big fill going into the post or the guitar solo, whatever you want to call it, at the end here in the drum. And that's just to really catapult us and kind of bring us to what I think is the climax of the song, because we have all these crashes. Big energy in the drums, and then one of my favorite parts of the song, this guitar solo. So let's play that. So yeah, that was a fun one to play. Obviously, I had to do a good comp on it because I am no expert guitar player, but kind of just was hearing what notes I wanted to play in my head and fumbling around on the guitar and figuring it out. And that's why you end up with 24, 25 comps, whatever it is, because you keep playing until you get the notes right. But yeah, did that and then worked it through some processing. Let's just see how it sounds with just this timeless clean guitar rig preset. Just such a great preset out of the box. I mean, I really didn't have to do much else to it, but I wanted it to be a little less clean and a little more distorted because, again, this is kind of, like I said, the climax. This is really where we're bringing more of like a rock energy to this. So. And just the way that is distorting some of the built-in like tremolo twang reverb that's in this preset here, I thought was just such a cool texture. Whenever I can throw on a spatial effect and then throw on some sort of like saturation or distortion to make that reverb tail, that wet tail, have different like warbly interesting textures to it other than it just the sound of that instrument playing in a hall or a room or whatever. I try to do that as often as possible, and I'll even take that and resample it, reverse it into something, throw another reverb on that, and turn it into a completely separate sound, like a drone or a pad or something. There's so many possibilities with adding on those sorts of effects after your spatial effects. So I would definitely encourage you to experiment with that, and then just kind of keep throwing things on until you're satisfied. And I mean, I probably had a massive chain on this and deleted a whole bunch of stuff from the end of it, or kind of in parts in the middle where I was just going too crazy. But that's sort of part of the process, right? You just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and you see what sticks. So right here, I'm just adding on a little bit of this cheap ray gun Echo Boy preset. You can see on a fairly low mix. Gives a little more depth, a little more character and color. And then did the same thing that Jesse did on that other guitar. He just ran it through his more distorted amp. And that really shreds. So those two combined. And there's some like really cool weird phasing going on between the two that I really like. So sometimes, yeah, you can run into those happy accidents when you put the same exact part through two different amp emulations or two different distortion plugins, whatever, and the effects of those are kind of interacting with each other in an interesting way that you wouldn't have even thought to create from the onset. So yeah, that's really the crux of this part. It's just the same parts as in the chorus playing through here, except for, what do we got here? Oh yeah. Love a good organ. This was also obviously committed, but it's a contact track, which leads me to believe it was one of the organs, part of the complete collection. I think it's like a B3 organ or something like that. But yeah, just that like rotary Leslie timeless classic organ sound. I think I've said classic about 17 times in this video already. But yeah, that just drives home the point that that's the vibe I was going for. But yeah, this is a huge build-up in tension, right? Like I was talking about before. And then another release, right? So we're just really breaking it down here to that kick and this upright piano, which is one that I use all the time. The Keyscape Wing upright. And here's what that sounds like without any of this processing. Let me just group these. And here's what it sounds like with. Yeah, so just kind of making it sound a little more vintagey, like it was played in a room through some, older, whatever, tape processing. I wasn't around in that time, so I don't know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to that, but this is my best guess at it. So I used, this one's not showing up, but I do believe it was this one, the old Joanna on Neutron, which is a really fun preset to make that upright piano just sound more vintage, filtered like that, taking out a lot of the lows, cleaning up some of the muddiness there. Added quite a bit of brightness with the Pultec because I wanted this to stick out in a similar way to the strings, because really what I'm doing here is just playing the same sort of pattern on the piano as I was on the strings. Doing a lot of scrolling. So that's kind of really the core of the whole track is that rhythm, right? That cadence. And we got that going in the acoustics and the way the chords are changing on certain beats. I'm just trying to emulate that now with a different instrument and a different part. So again, it's not adding too much novelty, right? The audience knows this cadence, how the chords are moving with the rhythm, but it's just being introduced on a new instrument. So it's still maintaining the audience's attention by bringing in something new, but not something so drastically different that it comes out of left field and you completely lose the audience, right? So same sort of thing, just different instrument. And that gives a different feel and sort of signifies that we're entering a new section, right? Obviously the chords change as well, so that's a big part of it. But another big part of this section was this really dry, I'm going to say classic again because it is very classic, but twangy, dry electric guitar that I intentionally left very basic. It's just taking a little bit of low end out and going through this British compressed preset on this Stark amp emulation from Clevger. But that sounds like this. Almost like a honky-tonk kind of sound, but that was exactly what I was going for, and we did the same thing with Jesse's amp emulation. That was probably his Kemper, now that I'm realizing, which has just so many great sounds stocked in there. Let's hear how that sounds together. And actually, before we get to the drums, let's just go over some more of the harmonic elements here. Bringing back the organ. So very subtle in this part, you can see way lower in volume. And then as
Let me hold you till you're in my blood.
We're getting louder. So increasing the intensity both through volume and by going up, whatever it was, an octave or 2 octaves. This whole section, the goal was just to make it one big build into the last chorus. So we have these guitars that come in, add a little more energy, stabs. And I debated having all of the guitars just play throughout the whole section when they come in. But yeah, I don't know. I just thought the stabs would be a lot more interesting, and again, kind of keep the audience on the edge of their seat, as opposed to just providing the same sort of thing that we have in the chorus of them just playing that rhythm the entire time. And it was fun to sort of match that, if we go up to the drums, match that with the emphases and the hits on the drums. So that's what these sound like solo. Kind of just vamps, hits again. So again, I'm just really, it's not anything overly complicated. I'm really just taking that cadence, the bum, 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 bum. That rhythm, I'm just trying to emulate across as many parts as I can, and then just kind of switching them out in each section. So in this section, it's really the piano that's driving that, with the drums when they come in, and the toms, especially if we solo those. It's a little hard to hear with the pickup. There you go. Bum, 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 bum. So we're just introducing that same rhythm with different instruments, different parts of the quote-unquote band, or the whole ensemble, introducing them with different elements across different sections. So actually, yeah, let's take a look at these two. The tambourines are helping with that groove a lot. And that just continues. But again, we had a hat in the chorus, right? We have that driving hat in the second verse in the pre. Now we introduce something a little bit different, a tambourine, which has a bit more of a release. It just feels more intimate, and it feels, more. Percussion instruments to me signify like more accessibility, right? It's a lot harder to get on a drum set and sound really good playing a drum set, as opposed to picking up a tambourine and just shaking it and tapping it against your leg, right? So it's kind of bringing the audience in with something that just feels a little more accessible. And this whole section kind of just feels like a breakdown that people just could come in and solo on different instruments and join in and sing, and whether it's different harmonies or just singing that main melody. I wanted the vocals to grow as well. We'll go take a look at those vocals and kind of bring in different harmonies as it's going across the section as well. So let's listen to that.
Beverly, come over. Let me hold you till the sun comes up. I could use a little. Beverly, come over. Let me hold you till you're in my blood. I could use a little. Beverly, come over. Yeah, I could use a little. No, I could use a little love.
And that was just pure fun. Whether that was necessary or not, I was just hearing that in my head as a little build, and wanted to throw here. It's a little portal. You'll see I've automated that up, and that's where we get that little grain delay swirly.
Beverly.
So again, that's just really, I needed some way to, because this is sort of a vamp, this whole section. It is building and building and building, but compared to the rest of the song, just not as dense, I would say. So I needed some way to build up the tension a little bit before I had this just really dry singular vocal here with the string, because I wanted to bring it one more time back down to just the strings and just the vocal at the beginning of the last chorus, because we don't experience that at any point in the song, right? Just the lead, because the song comes in right away with all the backgrounds, and the rest of the song in each chorus has backgrounds going through it the entire time. So this last section is just that one singular vocal
Beverly, Beverly.
On the first Beverly, and then everything comes in as big as it's been throughout the whole rest of the song. So this build here to me was essential to build that tension and then have that singular vocal be ultimately ultimately impactful when it came. So
I could use a little love. Beverly,
so it kind of fakes you out a little bit, right? It builds it. You think it's just going to lead into this big section and then fake out with the one singular vocal, and then everything comes in at the same time. And these lovely, lovely ad-libs on the last chorus. Not the prettiest sounding when you solo them, but definitely added some nice texture to that last chorus.
Beverly, I wanna make you mine. I could use a little love tonight. Beverly, don't let me say goodbye. Just give me a little more time.
So yeah, that's something I do a lot with ad-libs, is getting a little ridiculous with my vocal tone, because I think you're already hearing the lead and all the harmonies in whatever vocal tone the vocalist has naturally. So if you want those ad-libs to provide something additional, I feel like a different texture, almost like adding another instrument, right? You don't want to just keep adding instruments that sound the same, because your mix is going to get really muddy, right? So I think adding ad-libs with a different sort of texture just provides something new to the mix that's not already there, and it helps them stick out a little bit more if you want that to provide more intensity to whatever section you're adding the ad-libs to. So it's the same sort of concept as gang vocals. Like, my process with gang vocals is to do very ridiculous sounding like do some normal layers, but then do very ridiculous sounding layers across different vowel sounds, and like getting heavier, like ho, and then with baby sounds. So you can actually check out how I did that with my buddy Francis, a dope artist that I work with a lot on gang vocals specifically. And we did a whole video in that output series that I mentioned before that's on their YouTube page that you can check out, how we built those out and got really silly with it. But yeah, that's pretty much Beverly in a nutshell. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed. I think I covered just about everything. But if I didn't, if there's anything that you maybe had a question on, or something that I might have missed, or something that just looked totally whack to you, or you're like, why would you even think of doing that? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. Yeah, and this has been a lot of fun, so I think we'll keep rolling with these on some future releases. But yeah, thanks for watching, and have fun producing.